As Britain's schools break up, fears that the vandals will move in. And a success story for animal lovers. Brightness will go back to the wild. Hello. Head teachers around Britain are bracing themselves as they break up for the summer. The holidays are the worst time for vandalism. When school buildings are left empty, the vandals move in, causing millions of pounds worth of damage every year. For Newsround, Joe Healy reports.
More than £500,000 damage was caused when arsonists set fire to the Jessie Boots School in Nottingham. Its head teacher is Steve Clark.
I don't like going in. I don't.
To help them come to terms with the fire, the children did projects about it.
When I came to school on Monday morning, I didn't know that it was burnt down. So I came to school with my bag and I saw the school. I was crying.
Carl said there was loads of black smoke. He was happy to begin with, but then he was sad. He thought we'd have to go to a different school.
So why offend? A 14-year-old convicted of arson at a school in Nottingham says he did it simply for a dare.
Why did it? Just because I was bored. There's nothing to do.
The cost of vandalism in schools is worrying government officials, like the Home Office Minister Michael Jack.
The Home Office itself is backing the work being undertaken by the Arson Prevention Bureau to do some much-needed research into the whole question of vandalism and arson in particular at schools. We need to know more about the problem so we can target more solutions.
Those solutions are even more important during the summer holidays when schools are particularly vulnerable.
All 11-year-olds will soon have to take new tests at school, lasting 4.5 hours. Next May, there'll be a trial run. The tests will become compulsory the following year. The government's education boss, John Patton, said today he was determined to make the new tests rigorous and rewarding. There's been a big shark scare in Japan. A great white, like the one in the Jaws film, has killed a deep-sea diver. While a shark hunt is on, Japanese fishermen are refusing to go out to work. The diver was swimming near the inland port of Matsuyama. At the nearby holiday resort of Tamano, the authorities have brought in new protection for swimmers. For Newsround, Paul Druitt reports.
Great white sharks have always lived in the inland waters of Japan, but the first most Japanese knew about them was when one recently attacked a man who was diving for shellfish. All his friends found was his deep-sea diving suit and a shark's tooth left behind in his clothing. The discovery horrified divers and fishermen, and now nearly all of them have stopped work.
The sharks must have been chasing fish and dolphins and wandered into the inland sea.
Nearby, in the holiday resort of Tamano, the local authority immediately took steps to protect tourists. They spent £150,000 on shark nets from Australia. These are now positioned a few meters from the water's edge.
I think it's safe. I wouldn't be able to swim if I were scared.
I'm not worried because the shark nets are in place. But my mum told me to be careful so I wouldn't be eaten by sharks.
Windsurfers say the sharks have always been there. Many of the surfers have been bitten. But now the shark nets are in place, holidaymakers are flooding in out of curiosity. The resort expects an extra 40,000 tourists this summer.
Well, now to Spain, where athletes from South Africa have arrived in Barcelona for their first Olympic Games in more than 30 years. Newsround's Terry Badu reports.
The flight from South Africa to Spain took just a few hours. The journey back from the sporting wilderness has taken a good deal longer. It's 32 years since South Africa last took part in the Olympic Games. Most of the competitors arriving in Barcelona today were not even born when South African teams were kicked out of world sport as an international reaction against apartheid, the system that gave black South Africans fewer rights than whites. Now, with the apartheid laws having been officially abolished, a new generation of white and non-white South Africans are looking forward to a new era of Olympic competition.
Well, we are very excited. We have worked for it, and we are happy that at least we are here, and especially that we are now as South Africans coming with the whole of South Africa, not a particular section of South Africa?
Well, it's fantastic for all the South Africans and as well as myself to be here finally. We're all very keen and very eager to compete. This is fantastic for us to be here.
Despite the team's obvious relief at being here, South Africa's return to the Olympics is not without controversy. A row has broken out that may result in one of its javelin throwers being banned from competing. And there are reports that the runner, Zola Pieterse, better known to British fans as Zola Budd, may not now be fit enough to take part. 8 years ago, Zola Budd, then running for Britain, finished the villain of the Los Angeles Games after colliding with the race favourite, Mary Decker. Now older, wiser and running for her native South Africa under her married name, Pieterse, she's now said to be in training in London in a desperate last-minute bid to overcome a liver problem in time to make it to Barcelona. Zola's Olympic career may or may not be in the past, but the South African team managers are already looking to the future. Together with their 96-strong senior squad, they've also brought along a group of young athletes for what they hope will be the first of many chances to sample the big time. This is Terry Badu for Newsround in Barcelona.
And finally, a tame white whale will be going back to the wild thanks to a team of British divers. Earlier this year, the Beluga whale called Brightness escaped from an aquarium in Ukraine. He turned up in the Black Sea and was cared for by fishermen in the village of Gurza in northern Turkey. He was eventually recaptured and sent back to Ukraine. But now campaigners have won his freedom. For Newsround, Joanna Robinson reports.
Brightness became famous after he escaped from an aquarium where he used to entertain crowds of visitors. He turned up in the Black Sea and was cared for by people in a nearby village. But beluga whales are used to living in the cold waters of the Arctic, and there was concern that he wouldn't survive. He was recaptured and taken back to Ukraine. But then environment groups began to campaign for his release. These pictures of Brightness were taken last week by members of the British Divers Rescue Team. They went to the aquarium in the Commonwealth of Independent States to try and persuade his Russian owners to let him go. The Russians have been overwhelmed by the amount of support for Brightness. They've had letters from thousands of children all over the world. Because of this, they've now agreed to release him. He'll be allowed to go next year. Before then, there's a lot of work to do. Brightness has spent most of his life in captivity, and so will have to be taught how to fend for himself. The British divers will work closely with the Russians. It'll be the first time a captive whale has ever been returned to the wild.
And of course, we'll keep you up to date with what happens. That's all from Newsround today. Hope to see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.